What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the stream. It's Wednesday, and so we're getting wactical, I guess. That makes sense, right? That's fine. The new 10th edition faction focus article for Tyranids just dropped. And so in lieu of running in and doing videos immediately about it, I figure that we'll just do a little read through of it together as a group. I basically took a quick look at it so far beforehand. I think it'll be fun to like dive in and see if there are any sort of additional details inside the article, and we could talk about kind of first impressions. Fair warning, it doesn't seem great. Especially compared to the stuff that's being spoiled for Space Marines, it doesn't seem like, at least so far, the stuff that's being spoiled for Tyranids have any chance of competing. But we'll just have to see. Let's read into the article and see how it goes. Yeah, let's friggin' jump right in, everybody. No new Genestealers at launch? Yeah, I don't know. Everyone was expecting new Genestealers, but the models aren't like terrible. They're just kind of annoying, I guess. They're like they're too clawy and they grab each other really easily. It's a little bit weird, but they hold up. They're not awful. Talk about how all they want to do is eat everybody. That's fair. A little bit of fluff at the beginning. I guess one thing that we do want to talk about is the existing faction abilities that they've already spoiled, which I think they link to. Yeah, here we go. So this is the old article that talks about detachment abilities, and the Tyranid invasion fleet detachment has this hyper adaptations rule. So we do have to keep in mind that at least at launch, this is most likely the detachment you're going to be using for Tyranids. That gives you one of these at the start of the game. So either sustained hits, so that's exploding sixes to hit against infantry or swarms. Lethal hits, so auto wounding on sixes to hit against vehicles. Interestingly, I don't know if I noticed this the first time around. These don't specify melee attacks. And then precision, which we don't 100% know about. Unless it says so. Yeah, no, it doesn't say anything about melee attacks. That's interesting. So it actually works on guns, too, which is good. It does feel like it's going to be a little bit of a gun edition. Especially with how, I don't know. The rumors have it so far as melee being basically impossible to get into. I don't know how much stake I put in that, but it definitely seems like shooting's going to be kind of the king for a little bit, at least. We'll have to see what the melee rules look like. But precision, we don't know 100% but it most likely is that you get to assign saving throws on the target unit. But yeah, I didn't actually internalize that worked on ranged attacks. That's actually kind of sweet. All right, well, good thing we reviewed that. All Tyranids will get Synapse and Shadow in the Warp. Synapse gives you a bonus on Battle Shock tests, which I think we were expecting. I was not expecting it to be a buff instead of a immunity. But I guess like they want Battle Shock to be a really integral mechanic. So having an army that's immune to it, I guess, would be kind of toxic. We do have some leadership values here. So leadership 7 on 3d6. You have to roll a 7+ to succeed. So that's actually really, it is very difficult to fail when you're within Synapse, so that's fine. But it still is only 6 inches like the 9th edition version, not 12 to 18 like the 8th edition version, which is a little bit sad. Stuff is going to be failing a lot more easily once it leaves that 6-inch aura. Synapse creatures now also act as nodes to call the Shadow and the Warp down on the battlefield. So Shadow and the Warp used to be -1 to cast psychic powers, and you took an additional mortal wound if you perils. Now it triggers in a battle shock test on every unit in the opponent's army once per game in either player's command phase. So the interesting part about that is losing control of objectives. So that's one open question that we have, and it seems like this article is sort of implying that having OC0 means that you do not control objectives. So failing a battle shock on, if you trigger Shadow in the Warp in your opponent's command phase, you can force them to go to OC0 and then lose whatever they're standing on. So that does mean that that does make battle shock kind of a big deal, which I don't know if I love. I don't love the idea of a half-strength unit just like randomly shot by a mortar is just suddenly like, oh, no, I can't hold this backline objective anymore. That's a little bit funky. As a faction ability, though, this doesn't seem very good. How long does it last? I guess it... I guess the problem here is that we don't exactly know all the mechanics about Battle Shock. So it makes you OC0, you're untargetable by stratagems, and you have a problem falling back. But I don't know how long it lasts. They had never said that, right, chat? Nobody knows that. Bridge Troll... But $200 in STLs? How do you even spend $200 in STLs? Shadow in the Warp lasts the turn? So are you only ever battle shocked for one turn? Right. You take battle shock every turn. So it's a once per game pulse if everyone takes battle shock. The problem is that we don't know how long battle shock lasts, right? I feel like it lasts until your next command phase, meaning that the only time you'd basically ever use this would be your opponent's command phase. It's like weird that you could use it in either player's command phase. I guess it's so that you can turn off defensive stratagems on the first turn, or you can do it like reactively, but it would be way worse. Unless it lasts until like the end of the battle round or something, in which case it would be kind of bad. But if you can battle shock something in your opponent's turn, they lose access to stratagems, they lose all their objectives for one turn. And then it comes back to your turn and they're still battle shocked, and suddenly like you can contest their objectives really easily for your end of turn scoring, and then also they don't use defensive stratagems. Like, that's pretty devastating. The problem I have with this is that it's just so random. A battle shock test is like at best a coin flip, right? But most of the time it's going to be easy. Like a Space Marine unit makes a battle shock test like 70 or 80% of the time or whatever. So there's no, unless there are other like leadership or battle shock stacking abilities elsewhere in the faction, there's like no guarantee that your opponent fails here. So if you need it to like, oh, I need to turn off, fight on death with this unit or something, so I'll use my Shadow in the Warp. It probably doesn't do anything, right? It's just kind of like it just like makes them feel bad, I guess. And there will probably be stratagems to interact with Battle Shock. I would be shocked if there's not like a 1 CP strat that's like ignore Battle Shock for the turn or something. Screamer Killers force Battle Shock, but they don't interact with this ability at all. Right? If you're already Battle Shocked, a Screamer Killer is actually detrimental to you because its gun doesn't do anything anymore. But what I mean is that, like, I don't know if there are auras or something or abilities they have that can reduce people's morale so that your Battle Shock is more effective. But even so, if that's the archetype where they're all about like making people scared of them, I guess. That doesn't feel like a very good place for an army to be, because again, it's like highly inconsistent. What you want, even if you can impose a bunch of like morale penalties on somebody, it's still like maybe only an 80% chance or whatever to battle shock something, and if you flub it, then just nothing happens, and you've spent a bunch of time doing nothing. Battle shock, I don't know. It doesn't feel like that relevant a mechanic to me, but I have no idea. Yeah, what they needed to. So I think part of the problem with this. So this is an article. Like I said at the top chat, this article is kind of bad. Part of the problem is that they didn't preview anything that interacts with each other. Right? There's no mechanics in this. Like there's no synergies in this article. Whereas they preview like combat doctrines plus Osa Moment plus Gilliman and all these like interesting interactions in the Space Marine article. If you compare the Space Marine article to this one, the Space Marine article is like incredible. It looks really cool. It makes you really excited. This article has fucking nothing in it. It's so bad. So yeah, I mean, I guess you can make people take a Battleshock test. There's like a very slim chance it might affect their game plan detrimentally, but without knowing any other mechanics, this is like I'll go ahead and say it. It's just a bad ability. Especially if you can. It's an army rule. You compare this to Oaths of Moment, and this is unplayably bad. Maybe Tyranids just have like leadership reducing auras and targeted effects and stuff out the butt, and they force tons of Battleshock tests. But that's not what it looks like right now. It is cool. Like, I like the idea, but it just doesn't do anything. It's just like, imagine that being your one army ability. Jesus Christ. Yikes. Yikes, my guy. Oh boy. So like, yeah, I don't know. The only other faction we know anything about is Space Marines, and if you compare this to Space Marines, this is like 10% of the power level of Oaths of Moment. And then you compare the detachment ability to combat doctrines, and they're maybe equivalent. So it doesn't look like Tyranids are particularly competitive, but who knows? All right, we do see, I think, on a little bit of an upside, we do see actual huge glow up for Genestealers. They did lose. They for some reason don't get devastating wounds on their talons, which is a little bit weird. But instead, they get a bunch of sweet special rolls. So their statistics are, I think, basically identical. Yeah, they're OC1, 2 wounds, T4. Oh, they're 2 wounds. Holy shit! Wait, what? How did I gloss over that? Wait. They have 2 wounds. Whoa! Also, they say it at the beginning. Easy. They have the 8-inch scout ability, which gives them a free 8-inch move after deployment. So they're a pre-game move instead of before deploy. So that is actually a pretty significant nerf from Infiltrate. I would be surprised to see Infiltrate stick around, to be fair, though. I think that we'll see forward operators probably get this scout ability instead of the Infiltrate ability. Infiltrate's like really toxic, honestly. I kind of don't like it, and I don't like that in Arcs of Omen, especially, you have to have it to fight everyone else's Infiltrate. And it's just like this, I don't know. It's this really like predatory cycle. So they get an 8-inch move. We don't know if there's going to be Advance and Charge still in the faction. I have to imagine that there is, because that would be a shocking like core identity mechanic to remove from Tyranids. I imagine that there will be like some psyker somewhere who has a targeted psychic power who's like, go faster. So you can actually get them into melee. Otherwise, 8-inch move guys are probably not going to get anywhere. But they have built-in reroll 1s to wound. And then if you charge somebody on an objective marker, they get full rerolls instead. So 4 attacks, their AP has been reduced by 1, but their weapon skills 2. So in place of having to target them with buffs, they get all their buffs built in, basically. So you don't even need any supporting characters to make them do basically what they did in the current edition. And they get an extra wound for it. They lose their 4+ invulnerable save in melee, but 2 wounds is probably fine. They're the 4+ invulnerable save always felt like a little bit of attack on. Like occasionally you saved out of a melee swing with a Genestealer and it was like kind of funny, but they never did anything after it anyway. You were always on the 5-up against shooting for the most part. No Scything Talons in the datasheet? Yeah, Genestealers have not had Scything Talons represented mechanically for all edition. They basically, yeah, they had very few of those other upgrades last edition anyway. Yeah, if there was no advance in charge and you don't see the base movement of these units increase, then they would never get to melee. But I imagine that there'll be support characters that can target movement buffs onto people. So, yeah, I think these guys seem sweet. These miss when Genestealers used to always fight first. Well, they had like initiative 6 back in the day. They were disgusting. I mean, they've been disgusting every edition, so, you know. This is a hard unit to make, a hard archetype of a unit to make bad. They could be expensive now that they're 2 wounds, but I kind of doubt it, honestly. I think they flip their 4+ invuln save and some board presence for an extra wound. And that makes them much more resilient to small arms fire. Big stuff's going to pick them up still, but like random bolters and stuff is a lot less effective. Especially because there's a lot of AP 0. Like, we're not, like, a regular bolt gun doesn't get tactical doctrine anymore. So the amount of AP 1 small arms is not going to be very high. So these guys are probably on a 4+ in cover, which is actually relevant. Everything is synapse, chat. Yeah, I think the synapse keyword is what projects the, is what projects the 6-inch aura. Everything has the rule, and the rule just benefits from units that are synapse keyworded. I believe that we see that on Swarmlord. Yeah, Swarmlord is synapse keyworded. We'll talk about him in a sec. But I don't know. I'm pretty excited about the Genestealers, to be fair. I'm hoping that we see all of the scout stuff turn into, all of the infiltrator stuff turn into scouts. It would be unfortunate if Genestealers were saddled with this scout mechanic, but other people got infiltrator. If we see like incursors and stuff, like Phobos Marines get infiltrator, I'm gonna be so mad. But if all that forward operating stuff gets scout, then it makes sense. I think it's fine. Broodlords at initiative 8? Yeah, that was insane. Point cost was thought points cost was gonna be on the data cards? No. Points cost is gonna be in a separate document that's available online once the indexes come out. So we don't know anything about points cost yet. The only thing that'll be on the flip side of the card is unit size. We saw it in the Land Raider article, if you watched my video about it yesterday. The unit size and available upgrades are on the other side of the card. And there's like some like pre-game mechanics and stuff that I think will be on there. But the points values will not be on the datasheet cards. And that's good because it means that if they change points values, if they do like their biannual or quarterly updates, your data sheets are not invalidated. You only have to look at the PDF again, which I think is going to be great. So, yeah. Can you shadow in the warp each unit once per battle? It's globally one time. It's like a big ground pounder. Like one time you punch the ground and you shadow everything on the board for one turn and then you're done. That's it for the game. So you force battle shock on everything. It's not like, oh, I'm going to battle shock this unit this turn, or I'm going to force a battle shock test on this unit this turn, and I'm going to do it on this unit this turn. It's everyone on the board once. All right. Let's talk about Swarmlord. So, Swarmlord is a little sad. So, we talk about Genestealers seem cool. 2 wounds, rerolls to wound, pretty sweet. Swarmlord, nope. Swarmlord is real Shadow in the Warp. A real Shadow in the Warp energy here. It is weird. Yeah, I guess that he has Shadow in the Warp. I guess that's so that you have to take Synapse creatures in order to use the ability. Unless it comes from each Synapse creature once. That's not how it works, is it? Come back. Synapse, Shadow in the Warp. I went over it. That's a little confusing. It says you can trigger the ability once per game, But is that once per game per Shadow in the Warp guy? Was that the question you were asking earlier, chat? Yeah, if that's once per Synapse creature, suddenly I feel very differently about this ability. I mean, reading the ability itself, that feels like how that works, right? It's just an army rule. Why is it listed? It's listed under abilities, right? I don't know, chat. That's confusing as fuck. I think it's safe to assume you can only get it once. But if it's once per unit with the rule on their datasheet, it's kind of actually crazy. It says once per battle, but you might have multiple models with the ability, right? If you have multiple models with a once per game ability, then they each get to use it one time. But the fact that it's listed as an army rule, not a like datasheet ability, feels weird. But it's under the ability section of the model's datasheet. Does it say one or more? Oh, it does say one or more from your army with the ability has Shadow in the Warp. Is it? Oh, yeah, one or more units. Okay, no, it is just once per game. No, you're right, chat. You're right. I missed that second clause. All right, fair enough. So, yeah, it's once per game. That's very bad ability. Pretty garbo. That would be cool. But, yeah, so I guess in order to unlock it... Wow, there's additional restrictions on it. So unlike the Space Marine one, which is always active on everyone every time, forever, you have to take specific units in order to unlock the Tyranid faction ability. Amazing. Truly incredible. Good stuff. Well, there you go, I guess. So, yeah, anyway, the Swarmlord is pretty bad. So he's lost wounds. He's down to 10 wounds. He does have the leader ability, so he now enters units. But they didn't tell us what units he enters, I believe. So for sure he can go into Tyrant Guard units. Whether or not he can go into other units, I guess, is the open question. But I think we're back to the state of Tyrant Guard being a Blade of Wounds for Hive Tyrants instead of being making them untargetable, which is unfortunate. But Tyrant Guard will most likely be very tanky, so that would probably be okay. All of his psychic powers have been replaced by Synaptic Pulse, which is a D6 plus 3 auto hitting, strength 5 AP 1/2 damage. It seems very bad, honestly. Compared to Smite plus Scream, it's like, I think the against infantry, it's probably more expected damage, but it doesn't do anything against vehicles, which is sad. And I think that the worry that psychic powers just turn into like this strength 5 2 damage profile attack is it seems like is becoming more of a possibility, where we saw like Smite from the Librarian being previewed, and it looks like a lot of psychic powers are going to be somewhere around that power level, which is too bad because it's basically worthless. He's okay in melee. The problem is that his AP's been nerfed like through the fucking floor. So he's 8 attacks down from 9 at 2+ weapon skill, strength 9, 3 damage, which is the same. But he got the twin linked keyword, so it automatically rerolls its wound rolls. So he's hitting on 2s, unsure if there's any hit reroll mechanics available, and then wounding on probably 4s, full rerolling. So he lost an attack, but he gets voracious appetite, built in. which is pretty cool. So you don't have to spend CP on that anymore. And I guess it is still an open question whether or not that's going to be a stratagem. If it's not, these like strength 10-ish, strength 9, strength 10 monster profiles are probably not going to see very much play because they don't really do any damage. The problem with him that I foresee is that AP2 is really bad. Especially you compare it to like Gilliman just got spoiled with 4 damage AP4. And you're like, okay, why is this Swarmlord AP2? His offensive profile is whatever. His support abilities are okay. He has a 9-inch synapse range instead of 6. Like, who cares? And then he has a once per gain Agents of Vect, so he increases his cost of a stratagem by 1 CP, and he gains the CP every turn. The direct comparison with the only other support character that we know, this is way worse, because Gilliman gives you potential 20 CP per game, and Swarmlord caps you at 5. So he's 25% as good at supporting your army as Gilliman is, and he's like a quarter of the damage output. So I would hope that Swarmlord is now, and it might be the case because of the Hive Tyrants are like 60 mil characters. They're not actually physically that imposing. The hope that is now that they're more along the lines of like a normal character, like a captain level character, where they have this kind of like middling defensive profile and like sort of low wounds count and not pretty huge damage output. They're not this like enormous smash character, but they're very reasonable points level. So the hope is that Swarmlord comes in at like a, basically free, I guess. If he costs the same as he does currently, this guy seems very bad. Incredibly bad. Even just with the comparison to the current version of Swarmlord, he loses a lot of his support effects. He gains obviously some command point manipulation, which is cool. But losing, like, he's so much easier to kill now. He does way less damage, assuming that you were pumping him with stratagems previously. And he doesn't have any psychic powers, so I don't know. Yeah, the hope is that Swarmlord ends up being like, like a 150 point character, but we'll see. Thousand Suns gonna get axed? Yeah, I hope that that's not the case. I hope that every Thousand Suns unit doesn't just have like a D6 shot, strength 5 gun. Whoa. How bad are Hive Tyrants going to be if this is Swarmlord? Who knows? I mean, the Hive Tyrants have a bunch of different weapons, and they have ranged attacks and stuff, so I think they're just going to be different than Swarmlord. I hope that they're good. I fucking love Hive Tyrants, so I really hope that they're good. But, yeah, so far, Swarmlord's not that exciting. It seems like command points are going to be so much less... also, he's objective control 3, which is like super low, too. And it kind of speaks to me that I think he's going to be treated as kind of I don't know, like a slightly up-costed character model. He doesn't seem like they're pushing him as this like super huge beatstick, like, centerpiece. The hope is that he's more of a, support character. In which case, he's probably pretty good if he's costed appropriately, but without knowing points cost, we just don't know that. If they cost him the same as they have, then I don't think you can play him very well. Yeah, if he's 150 points, he's good. 250, he's probably not good. Yeah, for sure. Pretty bad. T10 means Melta's only 1-5. Yeah, I think we have to stop considering Meltas as the anti-tank of the game, though. I think there's like an impetus to compare everything to Meltas because Meltas are the anti-tank that we've been dealing with for an edition. But it's going to be las cannons now. I don't think you're going to see Meltas played very often. Meltas are mathematically very bad compared to las cannons. They've lost so much range. Like they have extra AP, which is nice, I guess. But they lost so much range, lost so much strength. Their damage output, it's harder to get their Melta bonus damage because they have to be within 9 inches, which is incredibly close. I don't think Meltas are where it's at. You're going to see las cannons, and that means that las cannons are going to wound most of the game on 3s or 4s. So the extra toughness is only relevant in melee, really, against enemies who are like strength 8 or so. In which case, I mean, it's fine, but he also lost Blade Parry, so he lost Blade Parry in 3 wounds, so it's more of a side grade. He basically side graded his defensive profile in some instances, but he gets shot by anti-tank weapons. He's just fucking dead. He's super easy to kill. Can you stack many of them? No. He's a special character. Las cannons are strength 12 now. Strength 12, AP 3, D6 plus 1 damage. At least the 2 las cannons that have been spoiled. It might be that infantry las cannons are not as powerful, but that's the Godhammer las cannon and the Ballistus las cannon are gonna be kind of the profile that you're looking at when you're looking at anti-tank weapons. Las cannons are wounded on 3s. They'll be wounding like heavy armor on 4s, but there's nothing that's been spoiled for Tyranid so far that's toughness 12. Everything for Tyranids have been toughness 9 or 10. Yeah, D through 10 Tyrant Guard. Well, probably not. You can only take Tyrant Guard in 6s, unless that changes. And we don't know what their profile is, so it could be that Tyrant Guard just fall over, but who knows? But also, like, I don't know, are you protecting this guy with Tyrant Guard? Is he worth the investment? Like, what are you're delivering this, like, shitty, like, AP2 offensive profile? Okay. My hope is that he can leader into other units, like normal units. If he can leader into, like, Tyranid warriors and stuff, like units that you're already taking, I think it makes sense. But if you have to pay for this idiot and then also a bunch of Tyrant Guard on top so he doesn't just fucking die immediately, then I am not really seeing a future for the poor Swarmlord here. There's also obviously some open questions about the monster keyword. We don't know how monsters interact with like line of sight or movement. If he's able to go through walls, then he actually might be okay without a support unit. But if he's stuck going around buildings and stuff, then he can't play out in the open, and he'll just die if he shows his cute little face. Epic Hero only allows you to have 1. Yeah, Epic Hero is the new character restriction. You can only have 1 of each named Epic Hero in your army. Leaders join a unit, but leaders, the units that they join are defined. So the problem right now is that we don't know what units he's allowed to join. So like there's a lot of open questions. Cool. How do I feel about Stonecrusher Carnifexes getting legended? I don't really care, honestly. I was never a huge Stonecrusher stan. And the problem with them was that they never got updated alongside the regular Carnifexes. So like right now they're just unplayable in 9th edition because they never got any of the mechanics that the other Carnifexes got, and they're the same cost. So like you would never play them. So it's just this, like the only times that Stonecrusher Carnifexes are playable is when like somebody forgets a mechanic and you can like triple their attacks for some reason because of their mace mechanic. So I think it's fine. All right, moving on. Swarmlord sucks. Get out of here, Swarmlord. They did. This is probably the saddest reveal here, I think. I was kind of a little excited about the Rupture Cannon being spoiled. They were making a big deal about it. They were like, "Oh, here's the cool Rupture Cannon. Wow, what a time." It's just so much worse than the current version. It's like basically garbage. So the current version is, if I remember the stats off the top of my head, 3 shots, strength 14, AP 4, D6 plus 4 damage. Is that right? So it went up in strength, but obviously everything else went up in toughness. So actually it is wounding the things on the same. Yeah, I nailed it. Here's the terrain effects. 14, AP 4, D6 plus 4. So it lost an attack. You lose an entire shot. Its strength is mathematically the same as it was, because all of the T7 vehicles are now T9. So strength 18 and strength 14 were basically the same profile. They wound T9 on 2s and everything else on 3s. So that's the same. AP is the same, but they go from D6 plus 4 damage to 2D6. Which is has a higher upside, but is more more variable. So D6 plus 4 averages 7.5, whereas 2D6 goes from averages 7. So it is a downgrade. Obviously, it caps at 12 instead of 10, but the likelihood you get there is much less. It's on a bell curve instead of a just a linear distribution of results. So you're most likely going to get you're more likely to get 7 damage on the new Rupture Cannon than you are to get higher damage values on the old Rupture Cannon. So it probably cuts its damage value by like, I don't know. It loses 33% already because of the losing an attack, and then it cuts its average damage by 0.5. So it's like 40% less effective. And this is what they put in their preview article, chat. Absolute clown fiesta over here at Games Workshop HQ. Yeah, so yeah, this is garbage. This is so bad. And you compare the best part about this, in my opinion, is you compare this to the Repulsor Executioner cannon that they previewed yesterday, right? Where's that guy at? I think the problem was that this faction focus article immediately followed up the Space Marine faction focus article, which previewed so many. I talked about this at the beginning. It previewed so many cool mechanics and like so many data sheets and stuff like that. And the Tyranid one is just it's just so much worse. So like, yeah, you compare these two weapon profiles, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on over here? This one's higher strength, but loses like a ton of damage, and is like half the range, and doesn't get Osa moment. Like why would you put these next to each other? Especially considering the fact that the Rupture Cannon is like a significant nerf, whereas the Laser Destroyer is an upgrade. Yeah. Oh, okay. I understand. You have to be terrible so that Marines can win. Yay! What a time! What a good time! The Marine Laser Destroyer can't wound a Rhino on 2s? I mean, okay. It full rerolls though. It has Osa moment. Like, you don't need to wound a Rhino on 2s. But also, I guess like they both can one-shot a Rhino, I guess, theoretically. But that's not a particularly inspiring comparison. And I think the biggest issue is that they previewed a unit that was nerfed. And I mean that's outside of the Genestealers, that's the issue with the entire article. Is that all of they've previewed is units that have gone down and have statistically been reduced. Which is sort of insulting. Like, why is that your hype article for this faction? Is a bunch of units that have been debuffed. Whereas the other article, obviously, like a ton of stuff gets mathematically better. Kind of wild. Not how evolution works. I mean, evolution's random, right? We're in the period of evolution where we're getting genetic offshoots that will eventually just be pruned by extinction. They're just gonna be destroyed.
Love the channel, don't get to catch many lives, glad I did today. Also from the GWQ, and they apparently SW get their standalone book back finally.
Features Destroyer, thanks for the super chat. Glad you were able to come in and catch this one. Yeah, all of the non-Codex compliant Space Marine chapters are independent factions now. So Blood Angels, Space Wolves, Dark Angels, Death Watch, all of those chapters no longer use the Space Marine Codex. They'll get their own standalone books. Although from the article yesterday, they're a little bit confusing. Their wording's a little bit confusing, but it does sound like they'll get access to Gladius Strike Force, at least in the index. So they'll be able to use the mechanics that were previewed yesterday, but they'll most likely have their own faction mechanics that are different. All right, so they talk about stratagems a little bit. Endless Swarm now targets 2 Endless Multitude units. You get D3+3 models back. So it's twice as effective as it was previously. I think the problem is that, and they do specify it's Termagants, Hormagants, and Neurogons. I guess Neurogons also, speaking about the survivability of characters, Neurogons were spoiled as being a bodyguard unit for characters. So it might be that they have like a wound passing mechanic to the new Neurogaunt unit. Or maybe just Synapse creatures can join Neurogaunt units. And that would be okay. If you have to chip through a bunch of like idiot like infantry to kill Swarmlord, that's probably fine. If you can have like a unit that he can leader into that's really cheap and that you can regenerate models into, that's probably that's something, I guess, at least. But they spoil that they have the keyword. I think the problem with these is that you can't use them. Like you have to survive to your command phase, and then you have to importantly as well, you have to survive into your command phase and not be battle shocked. Because if you're battle shocked, then you can't be targeted by stratagems. I don't know what the timing of that looks like. I imagine you check for battle shock before you go through the remainder of your command phase. Otherwise, you could use it before you check battle shock, and so if you weren't battle shock previously, you would be eligible to be targeted. I imagine that's not how that works. But then you could try to like endless swarm somebody back on an objective and then lose your OC value and run away anyway, and so it wouldn't matter. It would be unfortunate. But obviously the problem is that you have to survive, and I think that the tales of the the reports of the lethality of the game being debuffed is greatly exaggerated with the amount of rerolls and offensive buffs that like Space Marines get, for example. So you take like a 30 brick of Hormagants or something, Space Marines will not have a problem killing all 30 of them in one shot. This stratagem seems, fine, I guess. It being more effective is good. You get to heal more chip damage, I guess. Like, your opponent can focus down one unit, but if they do a little bit of damage to another unit, at least you get, like, a little bit of extra resurrection, so that's nice. But I'm honestly not that excited about it. And I also hope that this doesn't herald that Tyranids have, like, sort of wild horde play, because I really don't enjoy horde play in 40k. It's not a system that's, like, particularly... I don't know. It's not fun to play huge units and super high model count armies in the game. I enjoy more playing like Monster Mash style armies, especially in Tyranids, where you have like fewer entities on the table, but obviously that they're more useful. That's totally personal preference. I would prefer to see that it's not just the horde army, but it is what it is. Battle Shock is start of your command phase? Yeah, so you would check Battle Shock first, and then you would be able to target with this. Yeah, the best is like... Yeah, they say like, oh, we've removed rerolls. And then you're like, okay, full rerolls to wound. All right, full rerolls to wound. Space Marines, like, full rerolls army-wide. Like, every twin bolter in the game is now full rerolls to wound. Like, yeah. Oof. We'll see if Endless Swarm ends up being relevant. I think it's a good stratagem even already. It's just that it works on an archetype that's not very useful, and it's an archetype that's like never been that great in 40k. Gantt Carpet was okay for a hot minute in 8th edition, but it was kind of fringe, and you would run into these matchups where your opponent would just sweep you, and there was nothing you could do about it. So we'll see if they make hordes like worth playing, but I have no idea. It doesn't feel like it is. We just have to wait for more information, I think. A blast keyword is kept around though, so that speaks to me that they're probably disincentivizing hordes. Do you think there's any chance we'll get to pass psychic buffs through synaptic links? No, I don't think so. It doesn't seem like Synaptic Link is a mechanic that has survived. I wonder if maybe, like, you get this wording on some abilities. You choose something within Synapse range. I do like... I wonder if there's going to be more of a sub-theme of stratagems being more effective if you target them within Synapse range. I kind of like that. That's pretty cool. So, and unlike Synaptic Link, where you're passing buffs down the line, which, to be fair, like, got a little toxic when you have, like, a Neurothrope on one table edge passing a buff to somebody on the other table edge. But if you're incentivized to play this, like, super compact army just because of the your stratagems getting better, that's pretty cool. Nice. Well, the strat is army wide. It's just that you get an additional buff if you target within Synaptic Link, chat. It's not that you can only target within Synapse. It's that you double the effectiveness if it's within Synapse. Which I think is a cool way to do it. That means that, like, you can see some super powerful, like, stratagems and Tyranids with the restriction that they require to be in Synapse. Tyranids get their codex second. Yeah, the problem that I think that they specified that the first, like, 4-ish codexes will not have their mechanics changed between index and codex. At least their datasheets. They specified that their datasheets would not change. So if the Tyranid datasheets are bad, then they're just fucked for the edition, I think, which is unfortunate. Yeah. So, I believe that that's it for the article. Talk about wanting to bring the unnatural alien horror of the Tyranids to the fore. So I think, yeah, they're kind of specifying. Is this Robin Credis? Get out of here, dude. You still have a job. They're kind of, yeah, they're like specifying that I think they want to be more of a control-oriented army. Which, I mean, more power to them if they can make it work, but control, like, hard control is not something that's been super effective in 40k. That's like Tau, that's a kind of a Tau thing. But even then, if it's just like randomly making people roll battle shock tests, that's kind of the weakest form of control you can possibly imagine. And then there's some books. And then Chaos Space Marine's up next. Yeah, so I think they previewed on their live stream what looks to be the preview order. So we're seeing... let me pull up the order here. There we go. So yeah, we're seeing Chaos Space Marines next, and then we'll see some Space Marine chapters in Astra Militarum. That's not the release order, though, because I think we're getting Adeptus Mechanicus third, if I remember correctly, after these two. But Adeptus Mechanicus is going to be one of the last ones in the preview order. World Eaters players, get psyched for, like, next month to learn what your army does. Assume they want to incentivize more lore-accurate representations using a mix of sets. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Their interpretation of lore has always been kind of, like, fringe, which is fine. I'd rather the game be, like, a loose adaptation of the lore of the game, rather than to, like, doggedly stick by it. Like, oh, if this gun does this, it has to have these characteristics. I'd rather that not be the case. But they, like, because they change faction mechanics every edition, basically, so factions, you know, highlight different portions of their background pretty dramatically every single time they update them. Do I think Agents of the Imperium will get a codex? I think it's possible, but I think, but it feels unlikely. It seems more likely that they're gonna just be a selection of data sheets that you can put into other Imperium factions. But there's the potential that you get a detachment from it. That would be cool. I'd like to see an Aegis of the Imperium detachment, especially now with all the kill teams they have coming out, where you can build a... There's like an Inquisitor who's like requisitioned a bunch of like Adeptus Arbites and a bunch of like naval breachers and stuff. And if you can make that into a cohesive army, I mean, sounds fun. Yeah, I think that people talking about the battle shock mechanic like affecting Tyranids. I think that battle shock isn't like necessarily a unit running away. It's just a unit becoming combat ineffective. So you can like, I mean, Swarmlord doesn't degrade anymore, right? That's something we haven't talked about. Like, none of these Tyranid monsters that we've seen has had a degradation mechanic. Instead, it's like represented by battle shock. So instead of him like losing arms or whatever and losing his weapon skill value, he instead has this chance to fail morale to like be unable to be targeted by stratagems randomly once he gets below 5 wounds. So I don't know. I think it's conceptually different, but one thing that's important to keep in mind is that like morale mechanics don't necessarily just represent your units like losing their nerve. It also represents your units like becoming disorganized, becoming damaged, losing their war gear, you know. Like a unit with smoke grenades that gets battle shocked can no longer throw their smoke grenades. It doesn't mean that they're scared. It just means like they may not have access to that for a turn. It's weird that knights only get one set of cards. Yeah, that is a little funky. Although to be I do talk about knight households here. Knight households now going to represent both Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights. I do wonder if we'll see like or I assume that we'll see separate detachments for both Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights. I wonder if Chaos Knight, like how the data sheets will interact, and whether or not like you'll have a set of cards and an overarching set of mechanics, and then they'll just have different detachments that allow different data sheets in them. Like the Imperial Knight detachment only allows, you know, the Questors and the Armigers, and the Chaos Knight detachment allows War Dogs and Abominants or whatever. It would be kind of weird if you could just suddenly transition over. I don't know if it would be like hyper, like, I don't know, immersion breaking if you could, like, if you're like, I don't know, your knight household suddenly got corrupted by chaos, you could take Abominants, but it is a little strange that they're now one faction. Question about yesterday's Gladius stuff. Would you be able to take Sanguinary Guard? That's what it's looking like. They mentioned that the Codex non-compliant chapters like Blood Angels are going to get their own detachments, but will have access to Gladius. Whether or not they have unique mechanics and unique interactions with the Gladius Strike Force has yet to be revealed, but it sounds like that they will be able to use the Gladius Strike Force. I don't know if I would like parade around, you know, advancing and charging with Sanguinary Guard or whatever. We also don't even know what Sanguinary Guard do or what the Blood Angels faction ability is, but because they may have a different detachment ability, just based on the wording of the article yesterday. But it does look like they can take Gladius Strike Force. feel like it's a single index due to the number of data sheets. I guess that's fair. Like you could pare down like the Armiger and War Dog data sheets probably, or I guess you'd have 2 Armiger data sheets, right? You have Warglaives and you have Hellbrins, and then War Dog data sheets you could almost make one set, right? Because it's a single kit, isn't it? That builds all of them, all the War Dogs, not the Armigers. They have separate kits. Yeah, Brigands, Carnivores, and Stalkers. I guess Executioners are separate, but that's just the Armiger Helvrin kit. Yeah, okay. So you could you could even like you don't even need to make a new data sheet for Executioners. They just use the Armiger Helvrin data sheet. And then you could make this one set, like you could just make this a War Dog data sheet that has a selection of weapons on it. And then you have all the big knights, and then you're done. So that definitely doesn't feel like that many data sheets for sure. They're including Forge World in this. I would be surprised if Forge World had indexes or had profiles in the faction indexes. I would expect to see a Forge World index in the near future. I don't think I would expect Forge World to be included in each faction. But, I mean, never say never, I guess. I know that, yeah, they mentioned that Forge World would be getting support alongside the indexes, but I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a meaningless distinction, but I don't know if like each individual faction index will have Forge World attached to it, or whether there will be an Imperial Armor Compendium index, which is what I expect. I don't think there's a huge difference between them, but they've kept that separation for so long. I don't know why they would change it. Yeah. All right, chat. Anything else to talk about? Yeah, I think I don't know. I want to put it up to a botched marketing copy here, but man, if anything has stolen my enthusiasm for the new edition, it's been this faction article. Because obviously I was, especially seeing the Space Marine mechanics, I was like, oh cool, what cool new mechanics are they going to reveal for Tyranids? And then they revealed just a bunch of garbage. My hope is that the faction looks a lot better once you see it holistically, but based on the things that we've seen previewed between Space Marines and between Tyranids like are basically not worth playing compared to Space Marines. And hopefully we see more in the future, but that's probably going to be it for this faction in the reveals. I think we're going to be moving on to the other factions in the future. So we'll see Chaos Space Marines tomorrow. More, I think Blood Angels Friday, probably Black Templars Monday. So it's going to be pretty excited. Yeah. It was outside of the Genestealers, it was kind of insane what they selected, right? They're like, oh, we want to show off our big character. And you're like, well, your big character is worse than he was, so why would you show us that? And why would you show us this Rupture Cannon that's also worse than it was? That's weird. Okay. That's also worse than the other weapon that you showed off yesterday. Like, what? I don't know. Bizarre. Yeah, hopefully the points values they're correctly costed. Swarmlord for sure cannot be that expensive, because that guy has nothing going on that data sheet. Oh boy. All right, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap things up here. Thanks for coming and tuning in today. I think I'm gonna do some videos talking about these changes in a little bit more depth later today. That will probably be this evening, so you can stay tuned for those. And then as the new faction articles come out, I'm gonna try to cover them as quickly as I can. So it's gonna be a lot of work, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give my thoughts about it and the other how they interact with the other spoilers that we've seen so far. So stay tuned for all that. Otherwise, I'll be live on Twitch tomorrow, 2 p.m., playing some 40k, and then we have 9 a.m. U.S. Eastern. We have a commentator game on the Twitch channel too. So please go check me out over on the Purple channel, twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise tomorrow and Friday, and then lots of videos coming too. So thanks everybody. Remember to keep it classy, have happy wargaming, all that stuff.